What's up, everybody? Brace yourselves because Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles is making waves, and not all of them are calm. There's a ton of info out now, and some of the changes have longtime fans hyped, while others are straight up setting off alarms. And today I'm diving into the details, sharing what's new, what's weird, and what has people clutching their brave suits in panic. Final Fantasy Tactics is finally getting a full remaster, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. This isn't just a port or a slight upgrade, it's a full rebuild called Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. And as someone who's loved Final Fantasy Tactics for decades, I'm excited, nervous, and a little cautious. There's so much that made the original special, and touching any part of that magic always comes with risks. But I want to talk about what first many people are talking about before getting into something that really concerns me. Kind of go over in case you haven't been made aware of some of the changes coming to this remastered version. First, there are some updates I'm genuinely thrilled about, like quality of life changes, autosave, battle speed up, a world map that shows which gears sold in each town, I think. And these are the kind of modern features that respect the old game while making it smoother to play. The original soundtrack is also staying intact, and I think that's a great choice. Music holds a lot of emotional weight in games, and changing it would have been a mistake. There's also a classic version of the game for purists, with the original balancing, party size limits, and a CRT style visual filter, which is a nice nod to those who want to relive the game as it was. And then there's the enhanced version, which is where most of the big changes are happening. Full voice acting is being added, the script has been rewritten to fit the new performances, some voice actors even influence the dialogue by the looks of it, and I'm cautiously optimistic this could add a lot of character to the story, but it could also mess with the tone if it's not handled carefully. They've also added in restored scenes and extra conversations between characters that weren't in the original due to time constraints. The dialogue can even change based on which characters you bring into battle, which is a cool touch. I really like that there are three difficulty options now: casual, standard, and tactical. Casual is for players who just want the story, while tactical is for those who want a real challenge. They even said you won't be able to just spam arithmetician skills to win anymore. It sounds like they've thought about different types of players and how they enjoy the game, which I appreciate. That said, there are a few changes I'm not sure about. For example, you can't steal the Genji Gear from Elmdor anymore. I know the dev said it didn't make sense to keep a mechanic with such a low success rate, but it was part of what made that fight memorable. I just replayed the original version, which you can find the long form in a playlist on my channel. When I got to this particular fight and saw a 3% steal rate on a single piece of gear, for which there are something like 5 total pieces, I gave it a couple tries, failed, and just said screw it. The gear isn't worth it, and I moved on. I'm not really sure why something like this is being removed. It just seemed like an interesting challenge for the player to attempt. I didn't look at the Genji gear and attribute that to Elmdor specifically. I actually thought that the gear icons for the Genji gear looked really out of place to be associated with Elmdor's set. He was wearing like a cloak and like light clothing, so it was strange, I thought. Anyway, ultimately, I don't care too much about this, which you can tell in my video if you decide to dig through and find it. I just kind of moved on after a few failed attempts. I just think it's odd that they felt so strongly about removing the ability to steal it. But here's where I think I may run into some friction with you, the viewer. The characters and jobs from War of the Lions, like Balthier, Luso, Dark Knight, and the Onion Knight, are gone. I'm not a purist by any stretch. I have played both the original and the War of the Lions versions. The extra characters felt so out of place to me the first time I played War of the Lions. They felt very strange to have been included. For one, I had no clue whatsoever who the hell Luso was until I did research and took for granted that he was the main character for Final Fantasy Tactics A2, which I don't think really anyone has played, let's be honest, except for the few who played it when it first released on Game Boy Advance. Balthier I was familiar with, but still scratched my head on why he was in Tactics at all. Look, his unique kit was cool. I used him in my main party because he was strong as frick. He did completely render Mustadio useless, however. But I also think it's kind of weird that the cutscenes from the War of the Lions are back, but only viewable in the menu. I'm not upset, I just think it's weird. At a glance, you can look at this as a poor design or poor decision by the devs and get up in arms, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that it makes more sense with a decision they've made. I guess potentially the art style clashed with their updated version and would seem out of place, who knows. Now, the real reason I wanted to jump in here about the Ivalice Chronicles, I mentioned earlier I recently did another playthrough of the original. One of the things I remember about the game and loved was the propositions or the errands system. And I haven't seen any particular information about changes coming in the remaster, but you go to the tavern, you pick a quest, and send 3 generic party members out for some days before they return and report the success or failure of the mission. The rewards are lore, money, and JP, or job points, which are used to learn new skills. I said that propositions or errands were something that I loved. Here's the thing, I don't love them. They're boring and useless. The rewards are abysmal, which often costs more to take on the proposition than you make in rewards. And while those characters are out on this mission, they're unavailable for use until you call them back or receive their report, during which your team is either fighting in battles and growing much stronger than those on the proposition, or you're save scumming so that you don't get into any random battles moving a certain number of nodes to pass the days until the team returns for their report. The whole system is boring and a big fat waste of time. You can see my frustration in the playthrough if you want to go dig in there. I think I ran something like 10 propositions before I pulled off my rose tinted glasses and said, this is a waste of time and not fun at all. It doesn't work today. The proposition system worked back then, but not today. What I'm getting at is this: I can take the decisions from the developers on the chin for things I don't like and celebrate the decisions I do like. However, if the Ivalice Chronicles releases without a thought going toward the antiquated proposition system, I would feel let down, not because I think that it's something that has tons of value. I just think it's so bad that it would seem lazy in a way to let it go through as is. Anyway, overall, I'm happy this game is getting the attention it deserves. You can tell the developers really care about the original and are doing their best to modernize it without breaking what made it special. I just hope the new elements fit in naturally and that neither version feels like it's missing something essential. I'll definitely be playing both the classic and enhanced modes when it releases, but for now I'm just excited to return to Ivalice and hoping the magic is still there. I appreciate y'all being here, checking this out, and let me know what you think in the comments. But have a good day, and I'll see you next time.